with demand expected to come back, the question remains, does this mean the economy is back on track?
Companies now, after experimenting with offshore in places like India, Philippines, and Poland, want to bring those jobs back.
We invest in the U.S. We're the biggest exporter in the country. In the cycle we're in right now, we're creating jobs.
From Radio America, it's Neil Asbury's Made in America, the show that explores American industry, large and small, and promotes American-made products everywhere. Put Neil Asbury's Made in America to work for you.
A very big welcome to you today. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruffin. Hey, Rich, we got an incredible show today. A lot to talk about, but on a note of maybe hope. Is there hope? Is there still hope? Is there optimism? But the Democrats and President Trump seem to have agreed for a $2 trillion infrastructure package. So that's good. They're talking. Hopefully all the other clutter that we're listening to, at least there's a glimmer of hope there that we're going to move the country forward. I think it's great. We need infrastructure in this country. I fly all over the world. You go to some of these airports and you see the ports and you see a lot of these in cities with these elevated highways. I mean, there's all kinds of beautiful things being constructed in the world. More of that should be done here. And maybe this is just a small step, maybe a $2 trillion step, so I guess it's not that small, of moving this country in the right direction.
Well, of course they're talking. They're spending money. That's the whole idea.
Well, there it is.
That's in the DNA of any good Democrat.
But they said that they didn't know how they're going to pay for it yet.
Well, they said that
let's spend it, but we don't know where it's at.
They didn't agree to do this. They said in principle that they would agree to come together and try and do this. So we'll see what happens with it. I am very, very skeptic of these kumbaya moments, particularly after the last few days and listening to the House and the Senate. Yeah, but you're right. It's a chance. It's a catalytic moment. Maybe things will change.
Well, when this came up before, remember it was the whole concept of build, operate, transfer. The whole idea of private investment would build these things and they would charge tolls for a period of time. They'd be able to take care of their investors who's going to put up all this money. There would be a small user fee.
We like P3s.
That's right.
I think the P3 concept's a great concept.
But at the time when this was being floated, the Democrats said they didn't want anything to do with it.
Well, people listening to this are saying, P3, did I get that at Shell? Did that come with my gasoline? I think I got P3. I'm not sure. We'll have to explain that later when we have time.
But anyway.
Go ahead.
We had to start on a very good note.
Yeah.
But college, and jobs. And what kind of jobs? And how should we be training our people for the economy of the future? Are we doing them a disservice by turning out more liberal arts degrees or other degrees that cost a whole lot of money, but you can't monetize it? There's no jobs there. And then you end up doing something that you were not educated to do to support yourself and your family. And maybe there's a better way. But let's have that conversation. Let's have it right now, in fact, with Richard Vedder, who's professor of economics at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. He's also with the Independent Institute, and he is the author of Restoring the Promise, Higher Education in America. Richard, welcome to Made in America.
Glad to be with you.
So Rich and I have often talked about colleges and, going to college, moving back home. A lot of the kids are moving back home, in fact. We're finding out that, and it was great in your piece, by the way, your piece is called The Triple College Crisis, Too Few Good Jobs. And I think you nailed it. And especially, a lot of our universities are churning out degrees, making money, trying to, pay their bills. But they're not doing a great service to our students. More and more moving back home. More and more not even graduating their 4-year degrees or taking so many years to do it and then getting out and finding out that, hey, wait a second, they would have been much further ahead of the game if they might have, get a vocational education, a lot less expensive, and you got more jobs and maybe better jobs even working in a manufacturing or maybe a technology type of job that doesn't require necessarily a 4-year degree. So tell us about your book, what you've discovered, and what's going on with American colleges. What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong?
Well, they're doing, I've been a college professor forever, over 50 years, and so I love higher ed, and I think it's important. We would be worse off as a nation if we didn't have any colleges or universities. But on the other hand, they're too costly, cost too much money to attend them. There's too little real learning going on in them. Students aren't working terribly hard even. The survey data from the federal government says a typical student spends 27 hours a week in class or studying or otherwise doing academic work. And there are too few, as you pointed out, Neil, there are too few good jobs available at the end. And the problem isn't so much the lack of jobs, it's that we're just turning out too many college graduates with degrees for the jobs that are available. And so a lot of college graduates, if they are able to graduate, 40% don't even make it through. But if you're a part of the 60% who do make it through, you might end up as a barista in a coffee shop, or you might end up working in a discount house as some sort of cashier or something at Walmart or something like that. So we have a huge problem there, and we need to address it. So having been in the business for a long time, I thought, well, I write about it, and I think there are ways we can try to get those costs down a bit. There are ways we can enhance learning, of course, but we need to start turning our attention to these things.
Well, I agree with you, and by the way, I'm an ex-associate professor of English. My first real job was actually doing that a long time ago.
Yeah, and you're another Dr. Rich. I'm a Dr. Rich, too.
That's exactly right, but we never say that hardly ever. But anyway, these kids are graduating today. I mean, I've gone through it. I have two boys, one 28, one 34. And Michael graduated out of Chicago with his master's degree and really couldn't find a good job. And that really justified, maybe about $100,000 for 2 years, and that was just for school and living in Chicago and all that other stuff. So they really need to have something to do. Michael went on, and he had the DNA to go out and start something, and he started his own company, and thank God he's done okay with that. But other kids, can't or don't have that ability to do that. So, maybe what we need, and we've talked about this, Neal, on the show a lot, is apprenticeship programs. Maybe you should really learn a really solid trade and grow from there, because certainly those in the trade professions, plumbing, electrical, and so forth, are making a good wage. They're making good money. Good opportunities are there in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely, Rich and Neal both. We welders make far more than, dare I say, English professors.
No, say it. It's all right. I mean, there's no question.
And we need them. And there's a shortage of long-distance truck drivers now, I am told. The average age of long-distance truck drivers is now, pushing well over 50. And so we need people to do these kinds of things, and we don't put enough emphasis. It's been college for all. This has been the mantra. High school guidance counselors have pushed this and so on. There is some light at the end of the tunnel, however, gentlemen. Since 2011, overall enrollments at American colleges and universities have actually declined. And they're not going down rapidly, but they're edging downward as more and more people are questioning the value proposition of a college degree. They're finding it too risky. They're hearing stories about people who run up enormous student debts and are having trouble paying them off and are living in the basement of their parents for years after graduation, trying to work their way out of a problem. And I think the word is starting to get out that something needs to happen, but we need to do a lot more.
Professor Vedder, respond to this. I like your comments here. Our immigration system is broke. We all know that. We're talking about a merit-based system. We often hear that, we have to bring in all of these engineers and high-tech type of workers from India or from other parts of the world, China. They're coming to our schools. They're getting educated. We're sending them back home. A lot of people say we need to keep them here because we just don't have enough of our own people to take those jobs. So in your piece, you say too few jobs or too few good jobs. But there seems to be a lot of jobs here that we are not filling, and that our immigration system, should be used or could be used in order to make us a much stronger competitor in the world in technology and other manufactured products. What would you have to say to that?
Amen. I completely agree. In an earlier life, I wrote a lot about immigration, and I think immigration can be a force for good for our nation. It poses problems as well, as we all know, but it is a force for good. It makes a little sense to me to bring in large numbers of students from other countries to be trained in the United States and get degrees in the United States, and then go back to their home country and compete against us, in a sense. Why don't we? Why do we allow that to happen? And so I think we do need to change our immigration laws a lot, and we, probably need to encourage our American students to be more interested in engineering and science and so forth, and that in turn requires some reform at the K through 12 levels as well of education.
Professor, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there, but it's a very, very important topic. We really appreciate you being with us. Professor Vedder, he is from Ohio University, a professor of economics. He's with the Independent Institute, and he's also the author of Restoring the Promise, Higher Education in America. Professor Vedder, thanks for being on the show.
Glad to be with you.
Coming up, Dr. Rothman and I have a number of topics to talk about, very important headlines this week that impact your jobs.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruffman. So, Rich, a lot of things this week to talk about. A lot of things to talk about. But, we haven't talked about cronyism for a while, right? I mean, we used to talk about it all the time, but we've had a little break on cronyism. But now that we have a new election cycle, and the Democrats are flexing their muscles in the presidential cycle now, we're in a presidential cycle. Some of the stuff is coming up, and I think it's interesting to talk about. Well, first of all, one of Obama's advisor has gamed the system to get his book on the bestsellers list. It's kind of like this college admission scandal.
This is for you. But
I will tell you, as an author, I know this happens.
Of course,
it's like a dirty little secret. If you want to spend money, you can game the system. Now, the New York Times is always changing, supposedly, their algorithms of what zip codes and how many books you need to sell in each zip code, and they don't keep it always the same. So it's not like you can sell a lot of books to one person in one zip code. The books have to be sold across the country.
Right. Exactly. Unless, of course, you're a Democrat.
And that's right. Yeah. And you got this secret sauce. But it can be had. And so beware. A lot of those New York Times bestsellers, they were contrived. They were paid for. They have gamed the system. And here this week we hear one of Obama's people.
Valerie Jarrett. It's her book.
That's right. I mean, and that's right. Thanks for bringing up the name, because she was at the height of the administration. At the height of the administration.
Well, she was.
In fact, a lot of people thought that
Obama.
That she wore the pants in that family. I mean, she was the one, right? I mean, she was the one.
I'm going to let you just stay right there on your own. I'm not even getting into that. I want everyone to know that. Neil said that.
I'm saying that metaphorically.
I'm staying out of that.
I'm saying it
wanna say it.
metaphorically.
All right,
okay.
go ahead, next.
The next, okay.
Next.
And then there's Joe Biden's son.
Yes.
Hunter.
This is so exciting. Cronyism may come back. We had all these reports on it for years.
Well, apparently he and one of Kerry's son has ended up with a very lucrative contract with the Bank of China. Right? So, imagine that. I mean, how does that happen? It's like Nancy Pelosi's husband ends up with very large contracts in California to build all this infrastructure. I mean, how lucky can you be, right?
Well, I got a better one than that. Feinstein's husband's real estate firm got the contract to take all the old post offices, the buildings that they weren't going to lease anymore, they aren't going to be part of it anymore, and he got the contract to either sell or lease those buildings that was worth $180 to $280 million. How did that happen? I don't know. Just remarkable.
It's just like,
unbelievable.
That's right. I mean, come on. Politics, is you can make a lot of money in that business.
Oh, but this is a good one.
A lot of money.
No, this is a good one. And we haven't, this is so exciting because, since Obama's gone, we haven't really talked much about cronyism because we're not really busy paying people off. But hey, here's an opportunity because, Joe Biden's son, Hunter, what a strong name that is, Hunter, perfect, and John Kerry's son have this, firm. Right. And they went with, Joe Biden on Air Force Two, had meetings in China, and unbelievably as it may seem, they wind up with a huge contract with the Bank of China. A huge contract with the Bank of China. And you know who lost that contract with all this experience? And by the way, the two boys did not have experience in China, didn't have it. Goldman Sachs lost the ability to get that contract, but Hunter got it. Which is nice because you got to give people a chance to start somewhere in life. Why would they want to hire someone like from Goldman Sachs who knew what they were doing? They got, Biden's son to do it and John Kerry's son. And I'm sure that was just coincidental.
Of course it was.
Just coincidental.
Why would it not be?
Of course.
Hey, look, after hiking the minimum wage, this is also a headline this week. After hiking the minimum wage, Massachusetts and New York find massive job losses.
Wow, I'm shocked.
It's not like we didn't tell you so.
It's like, what do you think? What do you think these restaurants are going to do? People are going to cut back on hours,
or they're
going to cut back on the number of people they employ. They can't afford it. It's just a simple economic discussion.
You go in Massachusetts, you go across the border into New Hampshire. I don't know what you do, but you get out of town. There's always a way, and hey, look. People are not greedy. I don't believe they are. Small businesses, entrepreneurs, they just want to survive. They just want to survive. They want to build a life for themselves, their family, their communities. Right. They want to give back. They want to pursue the American dream, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But if you make it harder and harder and harder and you put up all these barriers to where you just can't make it, The dream is either got to extinguish or you have to find another way to it. Now, look, there's always going to be a lot of barriers and there's going to be a lot of ups and downs on your way to be successful.
It's not easy to have a business. We all know that. Look at you. You work so hard.
We all have. Everybody, has worked very hard to build their businesses. And now you get this government bureaucrat who has, done nothing in life except work for the government. They've never had to make payroll. They've never had to pay for health care. They've never had to deal with the regulation of running a business that they create.
Right. You didn't build that. That was the Obama mantra. You didn't build that.
It's either give up or find another way. And fortunately, the American entrepreneurial spirit is so strong. You gotta admire these people for finding another way around, in this case, higher minimum wages that the business cannot afford. And so therefore you find another way. And now New York and Massachusetts is finding out about that. We told them.
Right
here at Made in America.
Absolutely.
Hey,
we talked about it.
Rich, we got a really, really great guest coming on. Marc Morano, the founder of ClimateDepot.com.
He is really
this
good.
Guy's really good. You don't want to miss it. Stay with us. Coming up just in a moment.
Made in America.
sharply higher at the open, stocks continued to perform well over the course of the day Tuesday.
And I think that bodes well here over the next couple of years for having bigger demands coming to this country.
Now, more of Neal Asbury's Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with the co-host, Dr. Rich Ruffman. So, Rich, one of the headlines this week was presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke. He
Francis Patrick, Beto, to con the kids.
Yeah,
Beto.
Yeah.
The beta version of human.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but anyway, that guy.
Yeah,
that guy.
Yeah.
And you know what's happening right now, Rich, is that everybody's just trying to find that message, that throw it against the wall, like something's got to stick here. And you know, out of a sense of desperation, you're seeing a lot of them. What's happening with Senator Harris from California, you know, and in her grandstanding, you know, recently at the hearings about the Senate hearings
the other day, yeah,
with the Mueller report and the Attorney General, and you know, just being just downright mean and nasty. And
well, she can't go to McDonald's anymore. They'll never take her order. She attacked McDonald's just 3 days ago.
Yeah. Does that sound like somebody else? You know, I mean, it's just, you know, you got to just try whatever it is, and then obviously it's all the money stuff too. You know, how much money can we give away? The money sweepstakes that we're basically seeing here. And, of course, none of this would ever get through Congress. But remember,
democracy dollars. That's Gillibrand.
Democracy dollars.
Democracy dollars.
Yeah, she wants to give everybody $600.
As long as you give it back.
$600.
Got to give it back.
So you can then pick your favorite
candidate. Give it back
candidate.
to a Democrat. Yeah, you got to give it back to a Democrat. As long it's democracy, isn't it? But that's not buying votes.
That's
okay,
right.
I just want to be clear on that. Okay, go ahead.
That is pretty bizarre. I mean, talk about trying to up everybody else. But anyway, we're going to talk about climate change because
this is exciting.
The whole Green New Deal and, you know, that whole thing, and, you know, how that went out there, and some really serious contenders are picking up on that and really running with it. Kind of scary. Let's bring on right now Marc Morano, who is the founder of ClimateDepot.com. ClimateDepot.com. That's pretty catchy. Hey, Marc, welcome to Made in America. So, I mean, Beto's really going for it here. I mean, he's like the most aggressive on the climate change sort of, you know, their solution. Just throw a tremendous amount of money at it. Put your economy into the dark ages, because, you know, there's not going to be electricity anymore if these guys
really will be
away.
The dark ages.
Yeah. And it's absolutely amazing. And, you know, people are taking this serious. I mean, I guess that's, Marc, what's the most amazing thing is that there are many people taking this kind of stuff serious.
I mean, this is modern-day politicians talking about we have 10 years to save the planet, and you know, the Green New Deal is a 2030 plan, and oddly, Beto's plan is 2050. And even climate activists are upset because they don't think Beto, who's got the most extreme Democrat plan so far, is not going far enough. That whole Sunrise movement that gave birth to the Green New Deal, and it's the millennial movement, they're saying that Beto's plan could lead to 100 million climate refugees, tens of millions could die. They're not even happy with Beto's absurdity. But people are sitting around. They're talking about zero carbon-based fuels, you know, fossil fuel emissions by 2030, by 2050. 100 years ago, 80% of the world's energy came from fossil fuels. 100 years in 1918. And now, 100 years later, guess what? 80% of the world's fuel comes from fossil fuels. They somehow think they're going to turn on its head science, physics, technology, and make everything happen because – don't you know they're young millennials and they're supporting these candidates and they think they can do it. And that's where we are right now, just about people ginning up a fear of climate that's non-existent, and all the evidence that they present is absurd from extreme weather on down, and they're come up with a solution that's going to just literally destroy the American. But that's their plan. And I actually go through in my book, The Politically Incorrect Guide to Climate Change, and show their plan is degrowth, planned recessions, and centralized planning that will make life on planet Earth very different. And that was actually a UN quote, the last part.
Yeah, but the truth of the matter is, if you look at the Green New Deal, it is a number of socioeconomics that are in it that have nothing to do with the climate anyway. In terms of the redistribution of wealth and all these other things, universal income, health care for everybody. After all, it makes life better. You know what I find amazing, Mark, and I noticed it starting very early this morning. I made the mistake of watching the Weather Channel. And they used to be weathermen. Weathermen used to be fun people to watch because they can do anything they want to do. And they say, oh, it's going to be rainy today and it's sunny. And they go, oh, he's so funny. He didn't know what he was talking about, but he's a really funny guy. We like him. Right. But the truth of the matter is they panic. Now they're talking about, oh, my God, there's severe weather in the Midwest. It's going to rain. And at least 150,000 people will be affected by the rain today in the following areas. It's rain. But it's severe rain. It's frightening rain. And they go to the extreme. They go absolutely to the extreme. Therefore, we have to do something about the weather, don't we? Isn't that what we have to do? We have to fix it.
This is where we are. There was a UN climate summit. We had the UN Paris Agreement. We had politicians at all these summits in Copenhagen standing around saying, I am pledging to limit the Earth's temperature to no more than 2 degrees increase in 100 years. And then another one, I'll say 1.5 degrees. This is literally modern witchcraft. Modern-day politicians standing around declaring how they're going to affect temperature storms of the future by legislation, which would have no impact even by the United Nations climate science claims and models. In other words, it's just pure nonsense from beginning to end. One Princeton physicist actually said, we have not advanced scientifically. In the Middle Ages, we had at the Salem witch trials, women were accused of altering the weather and crop failure due to witchcraft and put to death. And they were put to death and sentenced by judges that were educated at Harvard University. So this was the elite of the society, not backwoods or, ignorant, uneducated, as the liberals like to call the rest of America. But this was the liberal elite of the time condemning women. And now you have people who drive SUVs and heat and air condition their home. They're being accused of changing the weather, and they're being told their lifestyle is unsustainable, and that in order to save our planet, we need to turn everything over to the economy and to the Green New Deal and central planners and socialist planners and the United Nations. It's the only way we can be saved, according to them.
Well, Mark, and the funny, too, is that they're all flying around in their private jets as they're telling us that we can't drive around in our cars and our SUVs anymore. But, hey, look, we got to take a quick break. We're on with Marc Morano. He's the founder of ClimateDepot.com. Together with Dr. Rothman and I, you don't want to miss it. Stick around.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. And Rich and I are on with Marc Morano, who is the founder of ClimateDepot.com. So, Mark, you've worked a lot in Washington in the political scene, and you've witnessed a whole kinds of elections and cycles and everything that's going on. So, what do you think with the Democrat process right now, and who's running? Vice President Biden has jumped in now, and so he's going to take a run at this. He's so-called the moderate in the room, and he's not yet subscribing to the Green New Deal, and he's kind of keeping himself away from that. But can he get through the process? How far left is he going to have to go? And will the millennials, like you just mentioned a moment ago, will they just totally reject him as some old white guy, some crusty old white guy? Why is he here? Can they bring themselves to vote for him? What do you think?
It's a very good question. Right now you have Joe Biden and you have Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein. They've been at odds with this young sunrise movement, climate activists, millennials. In fact, Nancy Pelosi actually called it the green dream. Dianne Feinstein was surrounded in her office and ambushed by young climate activists telling her that she basically failed them and didn't help, and she got very annoyed with them. So you have the climate activists now calling Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, and this is no joke, they're calling them climate delayers and climate deniers. So if you're a Democrat now who fully supports supports the agenda, but you're not 100% in on the Green New Deal. You're a climate denier. So what Joe Biden's going to have to do is pander. He's going to have to, and he will. He'll come out with his version of the Green New Deal. He's got a problem, though, because what is he known as? Lunch Bucket Joe. And that's because of his strong union support, allegedly. Well, the AFL-CIO president came out, condemned the New Deal. The Laborers International Union came out and called it a crock and nonsense. Major labor unions are completely opposed to this because they know what it will do to their unions and to the economy of the United States.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Patrick Moore, who's the co-founder of Greenpeace, calls AOC a pompous little twit. That's a quote. That's not even a paraphrase. A pompous little twit.
For his troubles, he was on actually Fox and Friends. This is about a month ago now. He said this was fake news, the climate crisis, and he went after AOC. The very next day, Google, on a Google search, if you were looking at the co-founders of Greenpeace, the day before he was on doing that, Patrick Moore, he was listed on Google searches as a co-founder of Greenpeace.
Yep.
2 days later, he's erased. Just like Joseph Stalin used to erase commissars who were not in favor with the party.
That's
Google
right.
gave no explanation. Google has not restored it. So now, even though Greenpeace's own websites, if you go back to the Wayback Machine, Patrick Moore is listed as one of the founding members, the co-founder of Greenpeace. Now, if you go a Google search, he's been wiped away because his message has become inconvenient. They no longer will allow. They're changing history because they don't like what he has to say now.
Well, you're right. I mean, Jason Pye was doing a piece for Real Clear Markets, Real Clear, and he is calling the Green New Deal as Communist Manifesto 21st Century.
Whoa!
Well,
that's
yeah,
a good point.
because look at. I mean, there are things in there.
Let's not play around now.
I got to ask a question. Wait a minute. No, Mark, I got to ask you this question. Just just for the heck of it. When I was a kid in school and we were discussing the Middle Ages and we were discussing, turning into base metal into gold. Remember that? That was a great idea somebody had and thought, hey, I can do this. We can turn base metal into gold. But no. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to turn the whole planet. We're going to control everything, all the weather on the planet, and we're going to take all the CO2 away, which, of course, what does that do? Kill us. It eliminates mankind. It takes away the trees and the forest and the grass, and we're all dead. Just saying.
Yes, if you remember we were kids as well, they had those flying cars from the World Fair. Everyone was always waiting for they never showed up. But hey, they're much more ambitious now. They actually believe not only can they figure out the energy mix of 50 to 100 years from now, they can figure out the technological advancements that are going to come, and they can figure out the weather patterns that it's going to impact if they alter, current policy today. It is the biggest con you could ever come up with. People actually claiming they can control the weather. We had Obama's first energy secretary say, for the first time in the history of science, we know what the world will be like 100 years from now. And I felt like saying, for the first time in the history of our administrations, we have someone who belongs on a boardwalk with tarot cards, because that's the level that they've reached with this nonsense.
Well, Mark, what's very interesting, and I think the farmers should be thinking about this, is that if, in fact, Beto and these other cats get elected, they get in on the far, far left, the cows have to start dressing up like chickens.
How
do you do that? I mean, chickens aren't that big.
When you go in, it says, eat more chicken. The cows are urging everyone to do that.
You know those ads?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And by the way, that didn't come. Nothing came out of nowhere, if that makes any sense. In other words, the Green New Deal has literally been the same environmental agenda since the 1960s. All they've done, they started with overpopulation, resource scarcity, species extinction, global cooling. They've just changed the environmental scare to global warming, but the solution has always been the same. Sovereignty limiting international agreements, central planning, wealth redistribution, attack on capitalism, attack on freedom, and that's all the Green New Deal is, just continuing that. Even the cow emissions part, that's been around for years. The UN chief has actually said meat eaters should be treated the same way smokers are in restaurants, either eat outside or have their own section to discourage meat eating, and that was years ago. So all AOC is, and the UN has also said cow emissions are a greater damage to the planet than all the transportation sector combined. So nothing in the Green New Deal was new. It certainly wasn't green. It was red, and it's not any kind of deal we want. It's a raw deal.
Wow. Hey, Marc, a great segment. We love to have you with us. Marc Morano, founder of ClimateDepot.com. Got to check him out, man. Great stuff. Marc, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Neil. Appreciate it.
Coming up, Dr. Rothman and I are going to have some final thoughts for the day.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Hey, Rich, Marc Morano, he did an incredible job. Very, very good. And, it is really quite frightening considering what could happen to our economy if this election goes the wrong way.
Oh, I think it's very, very scary. I think we're at a very, very pivotal point in this country right now because of the insanity that we're inflicting upon ourselves. I think you're right. I think someone like a Beto has no idea how to run anything. You got Mayor Pete. Doesn't know how to. He's running a city, but I don't know how well he's doing for that. Cory Booker, who really did do a great job from Newark. We got lots of articles on how Cory Booker has really ruined Newark. Not a great deal for them. We have all these folks. AOC. We got the lady from Minnesota. Omar is out there. She's doing a thing, and they're all say, well, we have to change everything. Everything has to change because we have to. It's not fair that some people make more money than others. It's not fair that some people succeed and some don't. It's like everybody from this group, kind of failed at Little League. That's what I'm thinking. Everyone failed at Little League. It's like, well, why are you crying, Bobby? Well, I didn't
make the team.
I didn't make the team. Well, why didn't you make the team? Because I don't know how to run. You know what I mean? So we're in this really, twilight zone of the United States right now.
And our life goes on. America will survive. We'll get through it. But elections have consequences. We've heard that before. So really think long and hard about the sort of country that we want to have. And I got to tell you, I think that we're at a crossroads.
Well, Neil, we're at a crossroads. We're looking what's happening right now, this very second while we're talking. All heck is breaking loose in Venezuela. It's horrible to see here you watch them running people over with their military trucks. They're running them over. They don't have electricity. They don't have food. They don't have toilet paper. It's just
they don't have medicine.
They don't have medicine. Everything is going to just crap in that country right now, and it's due to basic horrible socialist doctrine. And yet, the millennials and the folks and the Bernie Sanders and all these other idiots are out there looking at that, and the kids are saying, well, it's. I don't know. Maybe it's some other reason. Omar says that it's the United States' fault because we've had sanctions and so forth against Venezuela. Others are saying, who actually know what's going on in economics, that it's a very poor economic system. You cannot nationalize all the business in a country. You can't take the richest country in Latin America because of their oil reserves that are huge and bankrupt the country. It's like, how do you do that? Well, you do that because you have stupid economic policies. You have a person who doesn't know how to run anything. He was a bus driver. Nothing wrong with bus drivers. God bless them. If it wasn't for bus drivers and Greyhound, I couldn't have got to Syracuse University when I was a kid. I had to take Greyhound at first before they started flying there. But you can't run a country if you haven't got the background to do it. And this guy didn't have the background to do it, neither did Chavez, and we were all big trouble.
Well, he did have the background to export, lots of misery.
Well, they're great at that.
Funding, all of the rebel causes and what they did to Central America and the money that they funded there, what they did to the continent, what they tried to do to Colombia. Look at Colombia. It was such a successful country. Tried to bring down that government in that economic success.
And by the way,
it didn't work, but they tried.
The thing in Venezuela is not just the socioeconomics of poor running the government. They're also running drugs. You're running drugs from that part of Latin America into the United States. It is so corrupt. The generals are so corrupt in that government that this is their chance. They have to take it down. They don't have a choice. They have to take it down. There's no turning back, Neil, in this.
Yeah. And, what are your thoughts on Central America? And too, Nicaragua. Look what's happening there. Look what's happening on our southern border, which is really being derived out of Nicaragua. I think that's the catalyst. Supported by what? Venezuelan money. What has gone in to lock that country into misery, supporting another socialist government that has been absolutely horrendous for its people.
Like Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras. All those countries down there, it's just a bloody disaster. And so people are being paid to come up. Listen, we know this is being contrived. We know this is being controlled. Follow the money. You just talked about the money in Venezuela. Follow the money. If you understand where the money's coming from, you'll understand where the problem's coming from. But the Democrats say there's no problem. So wait a minute. So the Democrats are saying there's a problem in Central America. They got to come up here, but there's not a problem at the border because I don't know. Is there a problem or isn't there a problem? You cannot have these people coming up here because there's a problem and then say there's no problem. It just doesn't make sense. I'm just trying to figure that out.
Well, we're going to continue to try to figure that out. Right here at Made in America. But, Rich, unfortunately, for today, only today, we're out of time.
Out of time.
But we're going to be back again next week for another adventure of Made in America, where we never stop fighting for your jobs.